Month by month, the reach of Ukraine's long-arm drones has expanded up to 5 kilometers at a time. As a consequence, drones have evolved from a tactical nuisance to strategic depth enforcers. Since the emergence of drones in Ukraine, we're no longer looking at a war defined solely by artillery barrages and trench assaults that were the hallmarks of 20th century warfare, no longer defined by what we call the close battle, the range of direct fire weapons. According to Ukraine's top military commander, we have just crossed the drone threshold into an entirely new, terrifying era of combat. Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky, officially declared that the war in Ukraine has entered a new technological stage, one where the undisputed kings of the battlefield are the unmanned systems. Syrsky revealed this expansion of killing zones, and because the rapidly growing capabilities of strike UAVs, the no man's land between armies has grown wider and far more lethal. Moving in the open is almost a guaranteed death. And it is not just the killed and wounded that is significant. It means Russia is incapable of massing any force or piling stocks of ammunition and weapons for offensive maneuvers. This means Russian forces have to be pulled far back from the front lines for their own protection. To compound all of this, there's a Starlink blackout. According to Cloudflare statistics, Starlink satellite traffic has dropped 75% in Ukraine when Elon Musk decided to pull the plug on non-whitelisted satellites and accounts. Let that sink in. 75% of all Starlink web traffic in Ukraine was used by Russian forces, and now they can't access it. They're scrambling with makeshift alternatives that they can use for their drones and for their communications. And further afield, deep behind enemy lines, attritional attacks on Russian air defences mean Ukraine can disrupt and destroy the Russian defence industrial base. On March the 10th, Ukraine deployed 5 Storm Shadow cruise missiles to erase a critical node in Russia's war machine. The Kremniy EL microelectronics plant in Bryansk in Russia. This was the second largest producer of military microchips in Russia. Over 90% of its output is fed directly to the Ministry of Defence. This is the discrete semiconductor technology and high-frequency transistors that form the nervous system of Russia's most lethal assets. The Iskander-M ballistic missiles, the Pantsir S-1 and S-400 air defence systems, and electronic warfare suites like the ones that are currently struggling to jam Ukrainian drones. A Ukrainian Shark drone, a high-end, long-range reconnaissance UAV, was loitering over Bryansk, 100 kilometers deep into Russian territory, providing real-time battle damage assessment. Russian analysts are reeling because their air defences didn't just fail to stop the Storm Shadows, they couldn't even detect the Shark drone watching from above. By taking out the assembly workshops and destroying millions of dollars of specialised Belarusian-made production equipment, Ukraine hasn't just damaged a building, they've effectively halted the production line for Putin's smart weapon for years to come. But within this highly lethal environment, a critical shift is happening. Syrsky notes that Russia is actually losing the initiative, particularly in the southern sectors in Ukraine. How? By Ukraine rewriting the very rules of frontline engagement. Russia is fully aware of this technological shift, and they are throwing everything they have at it. Military intelligence indicates that by April the 1st, Russia plans to expand its unmanned system units to a staggering 101,000 personnel. Even more terrifying, Russian defence plants are now capable of churning out over 19,000 FPV drones every single day. It is an industrial avalanche of robotic warfare. But here is where the battle plans get truly fascinating. Despite Russia's massive ramp-up in production, the Ukrainian defence forces are not just holding the line, they're maintaining a distinct advantage in deploying multi-rotor FPV drones. Let's look at the sheer scale of the destruction. In just 1 month, Ukrainian drones successfully struck over 105,200 enemy targets. That is an astronomical volume of fire coming from the sky. And they aren't just going after tanks. As we saw earlier, they're hunting the hunters. In that same time frame, Ukrainian forces hunted down and destroyed roughly 4,200 positions of Russian UAV operators. Ukraine is systematically blinding the Russian drone swarm by taking out the pilots controlling them. So how does Ukraine survive an enemy that produces 19,000 drones a day? Well, through rapid, relentless innovation. And Syrskyi emphasised that developing unmanned systems is now the absolute #1 priority for the military. Specifically, to pull the workload off the exhausted infantry. And to that end, Ukraine is heavily investing in fibre optic controlled drones, weapons entirely immune to traditional electronic warfare jamming because they're literally tethered by a physical wire, an optical wire. On the ground, it's a similar story. Ukrainian ground robotic systems are now doing the heavy lifting. In just 1 month, these unmanned ground vehicles completed over 2,300 logistical and combat tasks, delivering ammo, evacuating wounded and laying mines without putting a single human life at risk. But defence is just as critical to offence. To counter the Russian swarms, the armed forces of Ukraine are standing up highly specialised UAV interceptor platoons. These are dedicated hunter-killer units armed with electronic warfare systems, anti-drone rifles and heavily engineered net launchers designed to specifically trap and destroy enemy quadcopters mid-air. All of this tactical brilliance on the battlefield requires an absolute revolution in logistics behind the scenes. And that is exactly what Ukraine has achieved. Through a new digital procurement network called the dot chain system, the military has completely bypassed old, slow bureaucracies. In just 7 months, this system has pushed 500,000 units of crucial equipment straight to the frontline units that need them. Even more impressively, Ukraine is shedding its reliance on foreign imports. The Ministry of Defence announced that over the past year, the share of weapons and equipment produced domestically inside Ukraine skyrocketed from 46% to an incredible 82%. They're building the arsenal of democracy right in their own backyard. We're witnessing the birth of a new era of warfare, the expansion of kill zones, the rise of specialised interceptor platoons, and an absolute reliance on unmanned robotics. The army that masters the machine first wins. For now, Ukraine's rapid innovation and domestic production are keeping them a step ahead in the most lethal drone war in human history. While the eyes of the entire world are glued to the Middle East, Ukraine was quietly orchestrating a masterclass in modern warfare. The biggest, most devastating news isn't coming from the Persian Gulf, it's coming from the Black Sea. We're breaking down one of the most dramatic, humiliating setbacks the Russian Navy has faced in this entire war, and they've faced a few.